quick and easy way. That way we can make sure there's some closed captioning on it. So I think everyone's here, so just mute yourself, and we're going to go ahead and get started if everybody is good with that. Are you all good?
Right.
Okay. So basically you can see I've got Mayor Lee here, I've got Vice Mayor Cobb, and I've got Bob Cowell, who's our city manager, that is here with us today. And we're going to provide some info about why the municipal offices are closed and for how long, and what services are going to be provided, and how, what services may not be provided, delayed or reduced. And we're going to reinforce how people can continue to access reliable facts. We want to remember the facts regarding COVID-19 and city operations. In addition, we're going to highlight how displaced workers and businesses can access information about assistance being offered by the state and federal governments. And we want everybody to stay up to date. And I think I put this in the little group chat. RoanokeVA.gov/coronavirus is where we're asking people to go. We've got information there from the Department of Health, and we've also developed a page for businesses where our Economic Development Office is working on some great stuff. So that'll be a landing page for businesses, as well as information for our employees. So there's all the most up-to-date. We have links to all of our other partners, and as a public information officer, you know, we've been in contact with all of our PIOs around the region. So we want them to stay up to date, our citizens to stay up to date with what's happening, and that is going to be updated. And I know the Virginia Department of Health is still updating theirs, and then they've got a phone number. So I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Lee, and let us know if you guys can't hear us or if we need to do anything differently, okay? Because this is all new, uncharted territory for us.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Tiffany. Following the state of emergency declarations at the local, state, and national levels, accompanied by restrictions on gatherings, on March 18th, the City of Roanoke took the extraordinary step of closing all municipal offices. Staff continue to report as normal to finalize plans to ensure essential services continue to be delivered in the midst of a protracted office closure. This step is important because it will minimize exposure for anyone who could potentially be infected with coronavirus. Details will be provided to the general public about what services will be available during the closure, how they can avail themselves of those services, and other useful information. It is anticipated the closure will remain in effect until at least the end of the month. But this will be evaluated week by week to determine the need for any extensions. Residents are encouraged to check the city's social media site and website, at RoanokeVA.gov/coronavirus, for regular updates regarding any changes in level of service and plans for reopening.
Good afternoon. I want to talk with you about worker and business impacts and resources that are available. As an employer of over 1,700 people, we recognize the impacts of COVID-19 reach beyond the most pressing public health related issues to concerns for impacted businesses and displaced employees. To that end, we are initially focusing on providing access to reliable, factual information via our website, RoanokeVA.gov/coronavirus, regarding state and federal resources that are available to assist with these challenges. These resources will continually be updated as additional information becomes available. As the current situation shifts into a recovery phase, we will offer technical assistance to those seeking assistance through these state and federal programs.
And our current focus remains the same, which is to focus on public health and to slow the spread of the virus. That's where we're focused right now. And we continue to remind folks about best practices that will assist in that, which include practicing social distancing, limiting socialization to groups of 10 or fewer folks, washing your hands often with soap and water, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, and staying home when you're sick. And of course, cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue. Our second focus is, of course, to protect the health of our employees and minimize their potential exposure to the virus. That was the reason, as the mayor mentioned, for what prompted the closure of all of our municipal offices through the end of the month at least. And we will, of course, continue to provide essential public services. We will provide access to reliable and factual information about the virus and the ongoing response. And we will provide access to reliable and factual information about resources that exist to aid displaced workers and impacted businesses. As mentioned previously, but we'll continue to mention it just so folks can catch it each time. All of this can be found on our website at roanokeva.gov/coronavirus. And as Tiffany mentioned, as has the vice mayor and the mayor, this information will continually be updated as we go along. And of course, we certainly hope that what we're dealing with right now will move quickly so that we can begin the process of helping the community restore what has been lost at this time. And we'll provide, I think probably through the questions, we'll be able to provide a little bit more detail to these things that we've talked about. But we wanted to sort of at least set that stage and then answer what questions you all might have as we go forward. So we're going to attempt this now with question asking. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tiffany so she can help orchestrate this.
All right, everyone. And again, too, if you can just remind your viewers and listeners to follow us on social media. We are continuously updating our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Nextdoor pages, too. That's a lot of great information. So if you have questions, I know this is always hard to do because it's not like I can see all of you guys if you're reading or what you're doing. Matt, I see that you're talking, so go ahead and let me make sure that I don't need to unmute you.
Yeah, it looks like you've blocked my video, but that may be less obnoxious. No, that's okay. I don't need anybody to see me. I haven't shaved in a few days.
Rick's back. Okay, so Matt, why don't you go ahead?
A couple of you have mentioned the continuation of essential services. What would be on that list of essential services? I imagine, solid waste collection, public safety.
Yeah,
what
definitely.
else?
Obviously, first and foremost, our public safety. So in this case, fire, EMS, as well as law enforcement. But as you mentioned, right there with that is the collection of solid waste. But then there are other things that people don't always think about. For example, we have child protective services that must go on during this, regardless of what's happening. We have some homeless services that will likely need to continue regardless of what's happening. So those are just some of the essential services. But and what we probably guess based on previous kinds of disasters is the list of essential services is quite large when you begin, and you may actually see that adjust and scale down really as the event continues to getting to the real critical items that you have to keep doing.
And,
right,
and what?
Go ahead.
Quick follow up. And what about transaction of business with the city government, such as any payments you need to make at the treasurer that maybe you don't have the means to do it online or something like that?
Yeah, we will still, what will be possible is all of our business will still be able to be conducted via phone, email, on web applications that we have as well, and our drop boxes will be active. So the piece that is a gap are those folks that have to pay or are trying to pay in cash. Certainly we encourage people to get money orders or find some other mechanism to do that. But a part of what we're still working through today is how we'll be able to, if at all, be able to do a cash transaction in some sort of limited format. That's probably one of the gaps that we have currently in the collection of the resources. And collection of the resources for us continue to be important, critical actually, because remember, all those services that I just identified all cost money. And so we have to make sure that that cash flow is still coming in so we can provide those services.
All right, I see Evan Jones with WFIR. We can't see him or hear him, but he wants to know what extent Roanoke is preparing to enforce state orders like limiting gatherings to 10 or less.
Yeah, and we'll have a statement in more detail about this coming out because this question has come up a few times. But as you know, the State Department of Health and the governor has issued an order limiting in certain businesses gathering of 10 or fewer, and where we're positioned is to assist them if necessary. So in other words, the primary responsibility belongs to them. And if they need assistance in enforcing that, we will certainly do that. But we're not going to be going around restaurants and bars trying to enforce that effort proactively. It'll be more in support of the Department of Health.
Okay, we have another question here. Given the high rate of evictions in Roanoke, what resources, services are available to people who may face evictions due to job loss because of the state of emergency?
You want to refer back to that page again? The Vice Mayor will kind of point people to that website again, because that's where we'll keep adding this kind of information.
Yeah, we'll keep posting updates on information and questions like this at roanokeva.gov/coronavirus. So we really strongly encourage people to check into that website regularly. Bob, I believe there's also a way that they can sign up for emergency alerts when information has been added to that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And also on that website, there'll be links into some of the state agencies that actually will be the primary party responsible for these. I've not heard much at the state level yet regarding trying to address evictions. It's been more focused right now on trying to provide additional services for those that may have become unemployed as a result of this, or businesses that are suffering some kind of business loss. But I'm confident, based on what I've seen elsewhere in the country, they'll start talking about evictions as well.
Okay, WSLS, what question do you have for us?
Good afternoon. Real quick, in terms of, most of us as business people have altered how we do business on a day-to-day basis. Have people working from home and doing things that we wouldn't normally do. What can you talk to the extent from the city standpoint of things that you've put in place to make sure that the city continues to run appropriately, at the same time making sure that you're taking employees' health and well-being paramount in making those decisions?
Yeah, one of those is doing press conferences like this virtually, rather than trying to gather a large number of folks in. But we have some of our staff is already out doing telework. Today, the reason we closed was so that we could complete all of our planning necessary to actually have more of that work being performed remotely. So we'll be doing as much of that as we can. For those folks that have to remain here or in one of our other facilities to conduct their business, we're increasing our practice at social distancing. So we're doing things like, can we alter work shifts so not everyone comes in at the same time? Physically, can they be located in a different part of the building or a different office in those areas? We're taking those into account. And really, a lot of it's going to be trying to do as much teleworking as we can. But there's a lot of our activities, when we think about things like picking up trash, certainly providing law enforcement services, the social distancing is going to become an even more important part of it. And Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to remind folks about the action that the council has taken, so that with the electronic participation in meetings, if we continue to have the council meetings.
Yeah, we will. With our whole thought process is to minimize exposure. That's what we're thinking about. And so we at council on Monday approved a plan to whereby we can do certain teleconferences instead of meeting. Again, there's certain criteria that must be met for that to happen. But we're thinking as we go on with this virus and as we work through it, that we're going to be doing more and more things with technology like this. And so we're preparing. Things are evolving daily, but we're preparing to be able to carry out business, even in situations such as we're facing right now.
Okay, I see our bus service is continuing. What measures are being taken to ensure bus passengers, employees are safe, and how will the next city council, okay, we already got city council in, but bus services.
Yeah. So on the transit services, and this still is a point where, all across the nation, there actually is quite a bit of discussion going on regarding the appropriate guidance in this way, because so many, a significant amount of our population depends upon that transit service in order to get to and from the work activities that they're doing, and in some cases even getting to and from their medical appointments. And so we want to keep some level of service operational for as long as it can be done safely and practically. So to that regard, that we have Valley Metro has increased the cleaning and sanitizing of the buses, and they'll keep doing that. It is very likely, I think, at some point those services will have to be scaled back in some fashion. And that's a part also of what they're working their way through and trying to decide and work through it. An example I can give you is in San Francisco, which right now probably has the tightest control over people's movement. Their transit operation is still working even at a limited degree because of the recognition that some aspect of the population, even for essential services, depends upon that. And that's a piece that we're wrestling with still as well to figure out exactly what we'll do with those. And then as the mayor mentioned, with the council meeting, you know, we've increased the opportunity for some members to participate electronically. But the reality is for us to have a meeting, we still have to be able to have a quorum of the members physically present. And so we're preparing for those. We have today made the decision that upcoming for this month, planning commission meetings and ZBA meetings will not be taking place. So it's really trying to figure out how we can have the next council meeting, which this time of year is pretty critical because of the budget procedures and stuff, but we'll continue to work through those.
Okay, I see if we get to a second round of questions, okay, Matt, I have another about safety measures for employees that must continue to work and be exposed to others. Are you providing masks, gloves, or anything else for their health? Yeah,
that's a great question. And yes, part of the directors meeting that we had yesterday was to go through an accounting of the resources that we had. And so obviously, as you can imagine, our fire EMS folks have the majority of the protective equipment that compared to some of the other operations. And so we keep working on those supplies, and we will continue to work on those supplies. All of those are in short supply though. And so part of the declaration at the local level as well as the national level and state level was so that we could access supplies out of the national stockpile. And so we're continuing to do that. It seems like the masks are still the supplies that are in the short, or the resources that are in the shortest supply. But right now we're okay, but we're probably only okay for some period of time. And then we need to start getting those replenished. And again, that's not just fire EMS. We've got those for police. We've got those assigned to our homeless assistance team. I mean, all of those folks that are going to have any opportunity of interacting, even to this limited degree with the public, that's going to continue to be a concern of us, is being able to actually continue to supply those.
And Matt, that's a challenge we faced around the country. And especially, I'm pleased that we're preparing our first responders to have masks because that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're currently operating under a protocol where when they show up on essentially any EMS run, they're placing a mask on the patient as well as on the responder. And so obviously you can go through masks very quickly because you're only using them one time.
Okay, and yes, for now, no change to bus service.
That's correct. And obviously if that changes, that will be pushed out through Valley Metro's social media and other forms, as well as ours, and as well as what the Vice Mayor pointed out with those alerts, that information will go out also.
Okay, what other questions do we have? Oh, Shane, how is your interaction with state level government agencies? The school closure announcement and the authorizing police to enforce the 10-person rule seems to have come as surprises to folks in this area.
Yeah, not surprisingly, and on something like this, it's moving so fast. I'd say the operational conversations are rock solid. So the folks that are in our emergency management, talking with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management constantly and on a regular basis. We just this morning had what has become an every other day conversation with all of the county administrators, city managers in the area. So all of those operational conversations are going very well, and coordination is very sound with it. Admittedly, when things are coming from the state and working their way down, for the two examples that you gave, the school closure and even the shift that the governor issued out regarding the 10 individuals, that information really largely came initially through media reports. And so hopefully those kinds of significant actions, that communication will improve. But again, with something that's moving this fast, I'm probably more concerned to make sure that those operational communications remain sound as they have been.
I might add, and I'm sure the Vice Mayor and I are very pleased with the communication that's going on regionally. As city manager just mentioned, he's communicating on a regular basis, and that's how I think we're going to work through this, is that open communication, talking to one another, and I think that's a positive note, and I'm sure pleased. And the Vice Mayor had mentioned that, Carillion just did a press conference at 2 o'clock, and so
they too have been working very hard to keep the community informed of what's going on, and they certainly have been one of the folks that we've been interacting with as well.
Okay, ballpark number of people who use the bus service.
I'd have to get back with you, and it's changing. Obviously, there are fewer people riding on it currently, but we can certainly include that information in the follow-up with this so that you would know roughly how many a day. I think typically there has been a number around 5,000 or 6,000, I think, on the system currently, but those aren't necessarily unique riders, and I want to get you the accurate number with that. So Tiffany can post that information.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And does the city charge a fee for online payments or even mailed in credit card payments? And will that fee be waived for any period to encourage that practice?
We don't charge a fee. There are fees that are assessed on the credit card, because those are actually fees that are assessed by the credit card company. I have not yet received any word that I've seen anywhere that the credit card companies have started waiving those fees. Obviously, if that becomes something that changes, we could look into how we would actually pass that savings along as we go forward. But we don't have any locally based fees that we add to it. It's actually those processing fees attached by the credit card company, and that's only for those that are using credit cards.
Okay, and WSLS is streaming this live, so we do have a citizen asking about the grocery store. There's not much there. Do we have any updates on anything like that?
I mean, other than probably what we're all seeing on the news media in terms of, stocking. I know most of the retail outlets in terms of stores have changed their hours to try to allow them to restock faster and to do some additional cleaning. But we certainly don't have any information locally that would be different than what everybody's doing on national media.
And then one other, curfews. Have we talked about any type of curfews? Those are some things that have been coming out.
The only conversation has just been with the action that the council took to validate the local state of emergency that I issued. There is a provision in that, as there is across the entire state, where locally we could, if necessary, declare a curfew. Really, most places that have been doing that was an alternative way to limit the amount of people that would gather at restaurants and bars in the evening. And really, the governor has taken that already on by actually limiting that through the orders. So there's been no further discussion of that at that time, but it is a power that we continue to possess if necessary.
And Shane, I see you there. We did talk a little bit about the dining rooms earlier, and we'll be crafting a message about the folks with over 10. Like, we'll be crafting a message on that. Let's see, what authority does the city have? Is the city giving to Roanoke City Police to enforce? Okay, so yeah, that's something that we did address. We'll be crafting a message that's going to come out on that. And I know that right now there's a lot of education going on because this is uncharted territory.
Right, that's been our primary focus, is make sure that all the businesses are aware. Again, I think most of them are, that this restriction has been put in place by the governor.
Okay, and Rick with WSLS. Mayor Lee, to date, VDH has reported no cases in Southwest Virginia. What do you have to say to area residents so that they don't have the false sense of security and ignore what they're being told about social distancing, staying home, etc.?
Well, first of all, I'm pleased to hear that. But testing will continue to reveal that to us. But to follow the instructions that we've given them and they're going to get on the web, and especially social distancing, that's important that they do that. And I think if we follow that pattern, in a few weeks, we may see some difference in the threat of this virus. But it's important that everybody not take things like wash your hands, don't touch your face, groups of 10 or less if you have to meet with a group. Personally, I'd say stay in as much as you can, and I think we'll get through this.
Yeah, order carry out.
Yeah.
And this will be our last question because our time is just about up. So you mentioned the teams that help our homeless population. How is the city supporting those workers and populations moving forward? Often they receive meals and shelter in those group situations.
Yeah, so we are continuing some of our services, but they're really bare minimum services. And an example I can give you is sometimes homeless individuals who are, for a variety of reasons, unable to avail themselves of services, say at the rescue mission, may be in emergency need of something as simple as a blanket or something like that. We will continue to be able to provide those services. The nonprofits in the area are all still providing their services. 211 is an access point for those, not necessarily the homeless, but for those looking for ways in which to help others. But and as a matter of fact, today is a day in which they're all asking for financial assistance to continue their missions, but they're all moving forward. And Vice Mayor, I don't know if, I know the United Way has kind of started a fundraising thing. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about how the nonprofit response, which is where a lot of really our homeless service response comes from.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I know that a lot of the individual shelter programs in the city are taking social distancing seriously, cleanliness seriously, making sure to have a daily and often several times daily cleaning protocol to make sure that the people that they serve are in a safe environment. I know the Rescue Mission is taking some extraordinary efforts in terms of just screening, in terms of temperature and those basic things that a lot of organizations are doing. United Way is working to coordinate a lot of different efforts in terms of what local nonprofits are providing in terms of services and bringing those into a central location source online. And I believe they've also scheduled a call for local providers for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I can make sure that that information is shared with Tiffany so that we can send that out for organizations that are doing this work so that they can be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and I can jump in the last, this really will be the last question. The last question was dealing with communications with the mall and with some of the store closures out there. I actually was in phone conversation yesterday with the local manager of the mall, and they too were trying to adapt to the situation and obviously knew that a number of their stores were closing or changing their hours. They at the same time were trying to figure out how to manage their common areas to make sure that they remained sanitized and also did not result in gatherings in excess of what the governor's order was. At that point in time, they were prepared to stay open for as long as it made sense. Certainly as stores change their operations and their hours, they'll adapt to that as well. But we are in communication with them as well as all these other folks that we've talked about.
Well, we appreciate all of you guys taking, because I know they've been really, really busy, and we're really trying to just keep our community informed, and we need our media partners now more than ever to help us with that. So, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to me, but we will be taking this, transcribing it, putting it out on the web, and I'll be looking for more of this to come in the future. We hope you guys have a really good night. Thanks. Okay, and we're going to end the